Welcome back, Outlaws. On today's episode, we're going to be adjusting the front and rear shocks on our 2018 Can-Am Commander, so stay tuned. After 4 seasons of abuse, these stock shocks are starting to show some wear and tear and sag a little bit, so let's see what we can do about that. At the time we picked this Commander up, we didn't have the option to get the upgraded shocks with the unit, so we went with what they had in stock. As many of you know that own these Commanders with these stock shocks, they get the job done, but they kind of suck. Now that the desert season's over, it's time to do the seasonal maintenance. I wanted to try to adjust the shocks because I noticed that we were bottoming out in some of the areas that we used to go that we never did before. The shocks were starting to sag, and I also wanted to get rid of that bucking motion that a lot of these have, where the back pogos up and down. For doing this job, we're going to need a special wrench called a spanner wrench. Luckily, in the toolkit that comes with your unit, one is provided. Let's open this up and check it out. These aren't the best tools in this little kit, but they're enough to get you out of a jam. You should have everything in this little kit to do the basic maintenance. Change a belt, change a spark plug, adjust your shocks, check your tire pressure, and so on and so forth. This wrench fits on this nut right here. It takes 2 hands to really get this done right. For the purpose of making the video though, I'm just filming for right now until I actually start doing the work. Coming back to look at the rear shock, we're going to see that it fits the same way on the rear shock as well. At the bottom of this piece where we're going to be turning, you'll notice little notches. We'll be turning it this way so that they gradually bump up and compress the spring a little more. I'll be using a floor jack and placing it right here to lift the rear of the machine up so that we can get the work done. First, let's take a measurement of the rear and see where we're at so that after we make the adjustments, we can see how much clearance we've gained. Before adjustments, we're right at 9 1/4 inches. Moving to the front, let's go ahead and take a quick measurement here so we can get a baseline to see where we're at before we make the adjustments up front. We're right at 11 1/4 inches here. Now that we have the floor jack in place, let's go ahead and lift the rear of the unit up so that we can decompress the spring and get it unloaded to make it easier to adjust. You want to get that rear tire all the way off the deck so that it makes it easy to adjust that spring. As I'm doing this, if you look at the spring, you can see it slowly unloading. A quick look at the tire, and she's fully up off the deck now. A closer look at the spring, and you can see that it's fully unloaded and stretched out. Another quick look at the tire, and there's clearance under there, and it's off the deck. Now we'll be taking our spanner wrench, fitting it on, and turning it to make the adjustments. Looking a little closer here at this nub, we're going to want to ratchet this to the left so that it hits in these little divots, which in turn raises the nut and compresses the spring. This task is a little difficult to perform with just the wrench. Although it can be done, it's a lot easier if you make a cheater bar like I did here out of a piece of aluminum pipe. This really gives you a little more extension on that handle, which gives you a little more pressure that you can push and makes it easier to turn that nut. I'm going to try one more time without the extension, just to see how tough it is to do it without it. I could feel it almost wanting to turn, but I'm going back to the extension to give me more leverage on that handle of the wrench. Okay, well, let's try this again. You want to make sure that you get the wrench in that notch on both sides so it grabs and doesn't slip off. Every time you turn it, you want to hear a good solid click. Turn it up until you get to the very top, because it's always easy to adjust back down. Looking a little closer here, you could see where the tab is now and where it came from. At this point, it's adjusted all the way up. I'm going to take it out for a test ride and see how it handles, and then I'll be able to adjust it down from there. Or if it handles good the way it is, just leave it where it's at. Now let's get the other side done. This side went a lot smoother. Same as the other side, you could see where that tab came from there, and it's all the way at the top now. Let's take a quick measurement and see where we're at. Not bad. We've gained 1.25 inches in height. That ought to help us get over some of those rocks. Now let's get the front end lifted off the deck, and we're going to repeat the same procedure on both front shocks. Someday I'm going to replace the shocks with something like this, a little bit better. But for right now, the adjustments are going to have to work because these guys are just plain out of the budget. Alright, looks like we got the front up. Let's go ahead and give the tire a quick spin and see if it's off the deck, and then I think we'll be ready to go for the front shock adjustment. Just like with the rear shocks, we're going to go ahead and repeat the same procedure. Now for the last shock, and we should be done. After adjusting both front shocks, let's see where the front sits at now. 13.25 inches. That's not bad. That makes for 2 inches of more clearance in the front. That should help out quite a bit on the trail. The next thing to do is to take it out on the trail and give it a test ride, but that'll be for another video, and I'm hoping that we get rid of the pogoing and say goodbye to that forever. I hope somebody that's in the same position finds this information useful and it helps them out in adjusting their shocks too. Let's take a closer look at this wrench and the pipe that I used. This thing really helped in putting some leverage on there. As you can see, when I was trying to do it with just my hands, it was a little tougher. That made it a lot easier. And don't forget, this wrench can be found right here in your tool pouch that comes with your rig. And as always, until the next video, thanks for watching.